Hello, everyone. Yes, I know my desk is super attractive at the moment with these paper bags, but I thought it was time that I introduce you all to my tab-bound paper bag journal. This is an art journal I made recently. I think I looked up several different YouTube videos and other stuff on tab binding just to refresh my memory, make sure I was doing it right. And then I took some, I think, seam binding and fabric strips that I just had laying around that are not particularly attractive. But the goal, a lot of times when I make art journals, I purposely make them as unprecious and unpretty as possible, to give myself as much of an excuse as possible to play and be messy and experiment and do weird things. I don't even remember why this crossed my mind, but all of a sudden I was like, I have a whole bunch of these paper bags I've been hoarding from when I go to places like Trader Joe's and forget to bring my own bags and end up taking paper bags home. And I'm like, that's perfectly good art trash, so I'm gonna save it. And I was like, I just want to turn them into a journal. So it's giant. It's the biggest journal I think I've made. Not I think. It is the biggest journal I've made. And literally all I did was I took the handles off, I folded these in half, and then I tab bound them together. I left the pockets or the opening of the bag intact, with the goal of it becoming pockets. This is the first page I worked on. I've been doing Wanderlust this year, thanks to the lovely Allison Bomber. She mentioned she was going to be teaching, and I jumped over and saw her name and a few other instructors and decided that I wanted to do it and signed up. And it's basically a session a week, most of which are geared towards art journaling, although not all of them are specific to that. And I followed, most of the time when I do sessions with instructors, I veer off at some point. This didn't used to happen. I used to follow very closely, but I've gotten to the point now where I know what I like or don't like, or I get a certain inspiration and very quickly end up going and doing my own thing, but I wouldn't have thought of that thing if I hadn't have been watching that video. So it's really good for inspiration, but it's rare that I do exactly what the instructor or the artist suggested. So this was actually, I think, 2 or 3 weeks worth. I would turn the videos on and work on this page, and they are nothing like any of the classes would suggest, but it did start with some collage, which was what the first session started with, and then some stenciling, and I ended up with this thing that sort of reminded me of, an aerial view of a landscape, like if you're looking at a plane or something, and I even used some map in the original collage, which is what I think took me there, and then I just went with it. I cut a bit off the bottom. See, here's the bottom of the bag, and now that is ready to be a pocket. I just have some deli paper in there so that when I'm painting and stuff, I don't end up gluing the pocket shut. And then ideally this would be the next spread, and the cool thing here is, right, it's like got this little flap we can play with and either turn into yet another pocket of some kind up here, a shallow pocket, if you will, or here, or who knows. So I haven't started to play with the in-between pages yet. And then this spread is very far from finished. When I work in art journals, things are almost never finished, even when they're finished. Like, I move on, but then I go back to it later and do stuff. And I have a distinct feeling like I might want to do something else here, but I haven't decided what. And then one day, maybe a year from now, I'll open it up and look at it and go, oh, and do something. So it is time to come back with some embroidery thread or other type of thread and sew here so that I can officially have my 2 pockets. But this is as done as it's probably going to be for the near future. This next one is far from done, but I have already made my pockets, and I have this long tail I haven't cut off yet. So yeah, I've sewn down the center here, and I have started some stuff, but I cut the bottom off again here. I already shoved just some deli paper I had. And, oh, this is what I use to hold the journal closed. The other thing that's good, like you'll notice there's a big gap because this is a very tall book. So when you're in the first couple spreads, you don't have anything underneath it. But because of the way this tab binding works, until I put any sort of final cover on it, I can just like pick it up halfway through, flip it over, and now it's nice and even. So that worked out real well, because at first I was worried I had a problem that I hadn't thought about, which happens a lot because I don't do a lot of pre-planning. I just kind of get an idea and I go with it, and then we find out later if it works. And I do that even with my nice papers and my nice mediums and my nice materials, and that's how I like to work. So it worked out. But yeah, I put some gesso, and it looks like a little bit of collage. Yeah, I put some collage down. I have this old gardening book I love. It has the most gorgeous deep patina. The pages are super grungy, and I love the text and the diagrams on it, but the paper disintegrates the second you do anything with it. So I'm trying to use it a lot in collage, because then by the time you put it on a sturdier substrate and add the media and it stays. So that's what's actually down here. I can tell just from these edges. You can see here on this side or here, that dark honey kind of color. That's from those pages, and I love it. And then this is clearly some of my dark brown Brusho crystals. I have, for the record, I'm obsessed with pigment powder, just in general. I love it. I think it's wonderful stuff. I use it as often as I possibly can. These are the canisters, the shakers that Lindy's uses for theirs, and I've just recently started playing around with Lindy's, and I'm very happy and excited to be using them. So I have Brusho. I have Paper Artsy Infusions, which are pigment powders with a little bit of walnut shell. So they all have this like brown grunge to them. That's wonderful. The Lindy's, I like the shimmery ones. I used to be very anti-shimmer, metallic pearl, etc. And lately I've just been really into it. I've got Nouveau shimmer powder. So I have more Lindy's coming in the mail, and more of the shakers so that I can transfer the rest of my Brusho into the shaker canisters. So, pro tip, they are my favorite way so far to administer my pigment powders, because I like to keep as much speckle as possible usually when I do them. I don't want them to all mix and turn into watercolor. I have watercolor for that. I really like the mess. I love the speckles, as you can see here. And so I think I had put the gesso down, and while it was still wet, covered it with the powder in hopes that it would be sealed slightly. I think that was probably just wishful thinking, which is usually the case when I play with the pigment powders. I have this hope all the time that I'll seal them so that they stay their wonderful speckly self. And it's hard to do, but I have my ways. Usually it involves clear gesso. So I had done all of that. Then I had I love a hare. A rabbit hair, hair specifically more than like a bunny rabbit. I like their quirky lines. I like how long and sort of wonky and jagged some of the lines in their bodies are. They're wonderful. And I had drawn this guy on some watercolor paper, and I really loved him. I did not mean to make him look like startled or surprised, but I did, and then I just really enjoyed it and wanted to keep it, and so I worked on the piece. Actually, yeah, let me grab it. So I worked on that piece, and I had it, and I really liked it after the first round of watercolor. But then I was trying something, and I immediately ended up overworking the piece. So here's how it turned out, and he's fine. Like, I'm not saying that he's terrible. He's definitely not what I was going for at all. The brush work here, the paint is just much muddier than I had wanted. So I traced him and transferred him because I really liked him, and tried again. And this I love. This is what I should have stopped the first time around. So this is primarily watercolor pencil, watercolor, and ink with a dip pen. And he makes me so happy. So sometimes you have to stop early, and I'm finding I tend to really like either minimalist like this, where it's really just a couple colors in a palette, a little bit of ink, a little bit of watercolor, boom, you're done. Or maximalist, where frankly, I'm going to keep this guy, and since we went too far, I'm just going to keep going. So maybe he'll stay a hair, and I'll continue to work on him and bring in some acrylics and some other media and build him up and do some interesting things and pull forth a rabbit out of this mess. Pull out a hair that I'm really happy with, or I'll just, cover it up completely with gesso or collage or both and do something else. I don't know yet, but that's normally the case when I have a painting that fails. And he's a failed painting. It's fine. Failure in art happens most of the time, I think. But since I had that traced image, I wanted to keep it. And so I played around, and I was like, it's some new tracing paper that I hadn't used before. And I wasn't sure if it would take wet media, and it really didn't. So it got, oh, hi, Sassy. It got all wrinkly. And I was like, that's fine. I straightened him out as much as I could. With the watercolor on him, and then I glued him down onto this substrate so I can continue to play with him. Sorry that there's a cat booty in the shop, but what are you gonna do? She's too cute and sweet. You can't not pet her. And then on the other side, I decided I've been doing these hairs so much that I want to start doing tortoises too. So I sketched a little tortoise onto some sketchbook paper, and then I decided to trace that onto some tracing paper and glue that down as well. I'm going to put you down, sweetheart. We'll love more in a minute. So that they would correspond with each other. They'd be cohesive, and I could start to play around. So this has miles to go before it's done. I'm going to have to start bringing in, well, first I have to finish gluing down in the spots where it didn't glue down very well, and then we'll bring in some acrylic and some who knows what, and really, really play. But this, yeah, already a little pocket. So one mostly done spread, one not at all done spread, and then a whole book left to go. So if you have a lot of paper bags and you don't know what to do with them, I would suggest something like this. One other tip, I need to go, I think, and make myself a book board, not just for this. I have another journal that I decided very brilliantly to do some beading in, like directly on the pages. I sewed some beads on, which were pretty and interesting, and now anything on that side just lumpy. So I need to just get, I mean, honestly, just a really sturdy piece of like chipboard, cardboard, bookboard kind of stuff that I can have handy, maybe store in a pocket, to give myself a sturdier surface, because that really is the one thing I've noticed, particularly with collage. You know, when you're trying to collage and get those papers on and scrape them out, it's kind of hard on something like this. This is kind of a bouncy, soft, squishy substrate situation. So I would recommend something like that if you decide you want to make one of these. But yeah, I just wanted to introduce you to my new art journal because I've had a lot of fun playing in it, and it's definitely not something I would have thought to do before, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to keep doing it again and again. Thanks for joining me.